Rain lashed against the windows, wind howled like a banshee. I curled up on the couch, a mug of hot chocolate warming my hands. The power flickered. Briefly, the room plunged into darkness. Then, with a soft pop, the lights returned. My old Victorian house creaked and groaned. Familiar sounds. Comforting even on a night like this. I took a sip of my drink, savoring the sweetness. The storm raged outside, but inside all was calm, or so I thought. A floorboard creaked upstairs. It was a sound that seemed to echo through the empty hallways, bouncing off the walls and reverberating in my ears. I froze, my heart skipping a beat. The sudden noise in the stillness of the night was jarring, sending a chill down my spine. My eyes widened in shock and I could feel my pulse quicken, each beat pounding louder than the last. The house was old, settling was normal, right? I tried to rationalize the sound, reminding myself that old houses make noises. The creaks and groans were just the house adjusting, nothing more. But deep down, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. I listened intently, holding my breath. The silence that followed was almost deafening, amplifying every tiny sound. I strained my ears, trying to catch any hint of movement, any sign that I wasn't alone. Silence. Maybe it was just the wind. The curtains fluttered slightly, and I tried to convince myself that the breeze was responsible for the noise, but the unease lingered, a persistent prickle at the back of my neck. I took another sip of chocolate, trying to ignore the prickle of unease on the back of my neck. The warmth of the drink did little to calm my nerves. I could feel the tension building, my muscles tensing with each passing second. Focus on the book, I told myself. Just the wind, nothing more. I tried to immerse myself in the story, turning the pages with deliberate slowness. But my mind kept wandering back to the sound, replaying it over and over. But the silence was short-lived. A soft thud. This time it was unmistakable. The sound was different, more deliberate, as if something had been moved or dropped, this time from the attic. The hair on my arm stood on end. The attic had always been a place of mystery and unease, filled with old forgotten items and shadows that seemed to move on their own. My imagination, I thought, running wild. I shook my head, trying to dispel the fear. But the worry was there, gnawing at the edges of my mind. I couldn't help but glance around nervously, my eyes darting to every corner of the room, searching for any sign of what might be lurking in the darkness. I decided to investigate. Slowly, I stood up, my movements cautious and deliberate. I grabbed a flashlight, the beam cutting through the darkness as I made my way towards the attic stairs. Each step creaked under my weight, the sound echoing in the stillness. My hand gripped the railing tightly, my knuckles white with tension. The closer I got to the attic, the louder my heartbeat seemed to become. I reached the attic door, my hand trembling as I reached for the doorknob. Slowly I turned it, the door creaking open to reveal the dark, shadowy space beyond. The flashlight beam cut through the darkness, illuminating the dusty, cluttered space. I took a deep breath, stepping into the attic, my eyes scanning the room for any sign of movement. But there was nothing. Just old, forgotten items covered in dust. I let out a sigh of relief, my tension easing slightly. Maybe it really was just the house settling after all. I closed the attic door behind me, feeling a bit foolish for letting my imagination get the best of me. As I walked back downstairs, I couldn't help but smile at my own paranoia. But the feeling of unease still lingered, a reminder that sometimes the mind can play tricks on us. I set down my mug, the clink against the table unnaturally loud. The sound echoed in the silence, amplifying the tension that had been building up inside me. My fingers trembled slightly as I released my grip, the white knuckles slowly regaining their color. It was just a mug, just a sound, but it felt like a harbinger of something more sinister. My pulse quickened, I strained to hear, every sense on high alert. The silence was deafening, broken only by the occasional creak of the old house settling. My ears picked up every tiny noise, each one magnified in the stillness. I could hear my own heartbeat, a rapid drumbeat that seemed to echo through the room. My eyes darted around, searching for any sign of movement, any indication that I wasn't alone. The wind howled outside, masking any other sounds. It was a relentless, mournful wail that seemed to seep into the very walls of the house. The windows rattled in their frames, adding to the cacophony. I chided myself for being paranoid. It was just the wind, just the house. But the feeling of unease persisted, a gnawing sensation that something was not right. An old house had its quirks. It didn't mean someone was inside. The creaks and groans were just the house's way of settling, I told myself. But the dimly lit hallway seemed to stretch on forever, shadows dancing in the corners of my vision. Each step I took felt like it echoed through the empty rooms, a reminder of the solitude that surrounded me. Still, I couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. A cold dread settled in my stomach, a heavy weight that refused to lift. I glanced over my shoulder, half expecting to see a shadowy figure lurking in the darkness. My eyes darted nervously, trying to catch any movement, any sign that I wasn't alone. But there was nothing, just the oppressive silence and the shadows that seemed to close in around me. This was ridiculous. I needed to get a grip. I took a deep breath, forcing myself to relax. My hands clenched and unclenched, a futile attempt to release the tension that had built up inside me. I closed my eyes, focusing on my breathing, trying to calm the storm of anxiety that raged within. It was just an old house, just the wind. But the sense of dread lingered, a constant reminder that something was not right. The phone rang, shattering the silence. I jumped, my heart pounding in my chest. The caller ID showed an unknown number. Hesitantly, I answered. "Hello?" My voice trembled. Silence. Then a muffled giggle, a chill ran down my spine. "Who is this?" I whispered, my voice barely audible. The line went dead. I stared at the phone, my blood turning to ice. Someone was playing games, and they were very close. Section 5, Frantic Searching. Panic surged through me. I had to check the house. Grabbing a heavy candlestick from the mantelpiece, I crept towards the stairs. Each step felt like walking on eggshells. The shadows seemed to dance in the flickering light. Every creak of the floorboard sent shivers down my spine. My heart hammered against my ribs. I reached the top of the stairs, peering into the darkness. Nothing, but the feeling of dread intensified. Section 6, The Shadow in the Hallway. I moved down the hallway, my breath catching in my throat. Each room stood dark and silent. My hand trembled as I clutched the candlestick tighter. Then I saw it. A flicker of movement at the end of the hall, a shadow just out of sight. I froze, my blood running cold. My mind raced. Was it just my imagination playing tricks, or was someone really out there lurking in the shadows? Section 7, Face to Face. This is where the story takes a darker turn, where the unknown becomes all too real. I took a step closer, my voice a choked whisper. "Who's there?" The words barely escaped my lips, trembling with fear. The shadow moved again, this time stepping into the faint light from the window. A tall, shadowy figure. It seemed almost unreal, like a specter from a nightmare. I couldn't make out any features, but I could feel its eyes on me. Piercing through the darkness, they seemed to bore into my soul, stripping away any semblance of courage I had left. Terror rooted me to the spot. My legs felt like lead, my heart pounded in my chest, and my breath came in shallow gasps. I was paralyzed by fear. My mind screamed at me to run, to fight, but my body wouldn't respond. It was as if I was trapped in a nightmare, unable to wake up, unable to escape. The figure took a step towards me, then another. Each step echoed in the silence, a harbinger of doom. I was trapped with nowhere to go, nowhere to hide. The darkness closed in around me, suffocating, oppressive. I could feel the weight of it pressing down on me, crushing my spirit. The figure loomed closer, its presence overwhelming. I knew I had to do something, anything to break free from this nightmare. But what? My mind raced, searching for a way out, a glimmer of hope in the darkness. And then, just as the figure was almost upon me, I found it. A spark of defiance, a flicker of courage. I took a deep breath, steeling myself for what was to come. This was it, the moment of truth. Face to face with the unknown, I had to confront my fears or be consumed by them. Section 8. Desperate measures. Adrenaline surged through me. I had to do something, anything. I raised the candlestick, my only weapon. Stay back! My voice cracked with fear. The figure paused, its head tilting to the side as if curious. It didn't seem deterred by my feeble threat. I knew I had to act fast. This thing, whatever it was, wasn't going to back down. Section 9. A race against time. I spun on my heel and ran. The floorboards groaned under my feet as I raced towards the stairs. Behind me I heard the heavy thud of footsteps in pursuit. I stumbled down the stairs, my heart pounding in my ears. The front door was just ahead. Freedom. I fumbled with the lock, my hands shaking. Finally it gave way. I threw open the door and sprinted into the storm. Section 10. The aftermath. I didn't stop running until I reached the neighbor's porch. Hammering on the door, I gasped for breath, my body trembling uncontrollably. They took me in, called the police. The house was searched, but no intruder was found. No sign of forced entry, no evidence of any kind. The police called it a prank, a cruel joke. But I knew the truth. Something had been inside my house that night. Section 11. Living with the fear. Now, I live with the constant fear, the fear that it will return. Every creak of the floorboards, every shadow in the night sends shivers down my spine. I've never felt safe in my own home again. The memory of that night, of the shadowy figure in the hallway, haunts me still. The intruder may have never been caught, but the terror it inflicted, the fear it instilled, that will never truly go away.